for more insight, let's go to criminal behavioral analyst Laura Richards. She's one of the world's leading experts on stalking. She's also the host of Real Crime Profile and Crime Analyst, plus the founder of Paladin National Stalking Agency and former head of the Homicide Prevention Unit at New Scotland Yard. It's great to have you here. You have called this a murder in slow motion. What did you mean by that?
Yes, unfortunately, it's something that I've seen in many cases where you get this drip, drip, drip of behavior, this insidious behavior of stalking and coercive control, and a previous history prior to a woman being killed. And so that's why I feel the history here is of paramount importance. You cannot separate out the physical violence, the documented history of physical violence, of threats, of strangulation and asphyxiation, of breaking into her home previously, and the fact that Amie was very scared. And that's why I call this a murder in slow motion, because it happened over time.
Yeah, there is clear documentation of Pursehouse stalking her. And as you pointed out, and we reported, he hacked into her email, he broke into her home, he took things from her home, he followed her, he hit her. There was physical abuse in this relationship. And yet you say in cases like this kind of documentation, what we know, is actually the tip of the iceberg?
Yes. And having worked so many cases, it's the reason why I changed the law in the UK. It's the reason why I set up Paladin National Stalking Advocacy Service and specialists who are called ISACs, Independent Stalking Advocacy Caseworkers, because we know victims will suffer 100 times before they even call the police. And we know with the murders, 76% of the victims of murders, they had stalking prior, so just under 80%. So it's really important that we understand this pattern of behaviour and that a professional is spoken with and that there is a proactive intervention. And it is not okay for women like Amie to tell her friends, if something happens to me, it's Gareth Pursehouse. That's how terrified she was of him. And she tried to do everything possible. But when there's stalking, it's about fixation and obsession. And in this case, it's about power and control.
She did get 2 temporary restraining orders against him. I think people might be surprised to know it's not easy to get a temporary restraining order.
No, it's not. It's actually very difficult. And particularly in California, well, in America, what they look to is that there is a credible threat to the person. And so who makes that determination? It's often people who aren't even trained in coercive control and stalking. So Amie tried to do the right thing, and the irony is, Elizabeth, she was a relationships expert.
Yeah.
But we're talking about abuse here. This is somebody who, most likely, given that he's in his 4th decade of life, he probably has a history, and that's what I see with most stalkers, and I'm going to call him that because of the documented history. So that's not about speculation. The fact that he says that he was suicidal. Well, actually, suicide is a high risk factor for femicide. It links to homicide. And when somebody has nothing left to lose and when there's finality, this is the end result. And the fact that he broke into her house on Valentine's Eve, Valentine's night, that is very specific. And the fact he'd broken into her property before, she knew that she wasn't safe, but he didn't go there to have a conversation with her. And no woman just falls over their balcony in the middle of the night on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Particularly when there's a documented history.
Thanks so much for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.